And we are back, and it is March, and it has been a while. And I should explain, we were meaning to be back a couple weeks ago. And the reason is because that we did not is because Wade, yours truly, came down with the mother of all respiratory infections, thanks to my loving daughter.
Yeah, not the one that people are thinking, but just a good child-earned respiratory infection from back in the day.
Yeah, this was just the meanest thing I've had in decades. Anyway, just wiped me out. My voice was trashed. I was coughing nonstop. So sometimes I can push through and I can do a show when I'm not well, but there was no way with this thing. So, literally, I am just back basically like yesterday. I'm not coughing as of yesterday. Even during our big Film Week Oscar thing on Sunday, my voice was starting to give out during the show. And I didn't cough, but I was drinking a lot of water to try to lubricate the vocal cords. And you know, it was giving out. But I'm pretty much solidly back now. So, Tim, you were a star at the show on Sunday, I have to say.
The whole thing was good. People should really listen. I guess people will have an opportunity, right?
This week?
It'll air the first time this week and Saturday.
Yeah, it'll air on Friday the 10th. Right? It's Friday. Yes, Friday the 10th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. You can listen, and then it'll be on podcast, but you can listen to SCPR, which stands for Southern California Public Radio.org, SCPR.org, or if you're in LA, just go to 89.3 LAist FM. But it was a good show. You got us off on a really great joke, and everybody else just kind of loosened up and kicked back, and the audience laughed. We did it at the classic old movie palace, the Orpheum downtown, which was originally a vaudeville house.
Yeah, I did not know that, man. Yeah. A real old haunted building that one is, man.
Oh man,
a lot of. What do you tell us? I think he told us Judy Garland. When her family, when it was the Gum family, on that stage, that was kind of really sort of interesting. Some of the folks, the Marx Brothers, on that stage doing vaudeville. So that's a kind of a cool thing we got to do there.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It was good. It was fun, and I enjoyed Justin and Charles.
That was a good one.
That was fun. Little cat fighting on the stage. It was nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Man, we got some wicked obits. Let's start with the one that is deeply personal to me. Melinda Dillon passed away a few weeks ago. Melinda Dillon, of course, 2-time Oscar nominee for Close Encounters, got the first ever acting nomination for a Steven Spielberg directed film there. And then another one for Sidney Pollack's Absence of Malice. Also won accolades for an amazing double role in Hal Ashby's Bound for Glory opposite David Carradine. Slapshot, A Christmas, The Mom in A Christmas Story, The Mom and Harry and the Hendersons. And, Melinda was a very, very, very close friend. She and my mother were close. Her son and I, are still very, very dear and close friends. She was part of our mom squad when, I was growing up. She was one of it was just a tight-knit group of moms, and they were mothers to all of us. My mother was one of them, and Melinda was one of them too. So I haven't lost just a great actress. I've lost a very, very dear friend and a member of the family. And that one pricks. I'm sorry that she never won an Oscar outright, but boy, she gave some amazing performances.
Extraordinary performances, that really, really heartfelt performance in Absence of Malice, in particular, and even in Close Encounters, she was always just so earthy. Melinda, and I had the chance to meet her a few times over the last 30 years or so, because come to your house, and sometimes Melinda Dillon would be there, and we did do a sit down interview with her for our friend Ray Green, filmmaker Ray R.H. Green, and about the film that he was making, and that was a lovely day too. So wonderful.
It was it was The Cry of Jazz. That was about The Cry of Jazz, which was her very first film. She was 19 years old when she made that, and that was one of the first films pre-civil rights era to start challenging the color line in relationships and on film. And it's now in the Library of Congress, whatever they call it, the protected films list. And that was, that was her first film. So it's quite a claim to fame there too. So deeply, deeply missing Melinda. Her last film, by the way, was a 9/11 film. It was a 2007 film, Rain Over Me, with Adam Sandler and Don Cheadle.
Oh, yeah, which is a very good film. Not often
really
seen. Very powerful film from both of them. To my mind, beginning what has been Adam Sandler's long sort of Oscar seeking nomination, not getting run of films where he's just been really sort of good in these movies and haven't gotten any sort of Oscar nods that he probably should have got. That was a really good one. You're right. Melinda was
Mike Binder wrote and directed that, and I remember when she was shooting it. I remember talking to her. I was like, "How's that movie going?" She and because I was thinking an Adam Sandler movie and Don Cheadle, like Cheadle and Sandler don't kind of live in the same universe, right? But I remember her telling me, she's like, no, it's really dramatic, and it's like Sandler came over to Cheadle's side of the fence for that one. Yeah. And boy, I think everybody in that movie just slays it. And Mike Binder just doesn't make enough movies. I thought that was a really well written and directed film. But,
very heartfelt.
Well, and then here's who else we lost. We lost Hugh Hudson. The never won an Oscar, but directed Chariots of Fire to an Oscar, and then many other great films like Greystoke. Hudson was a class act, very close friend of David Lean's in his waning days, and I still think Chariots of Fire is just it's a stone cold, flawless masterpiece. And I didn't realize he was in his 80s, like all those directors that came out of that same advertising shop of David Putnam in the 1960s and 70s. The only one that's still with us and kicking hard is Ridley Scott. And Adrian Lyne, if he ever decides to make another movie, but my goodness.
These guys were fantastic. And back they made the kind of movies that you really can't make as feature films anymore. Chariots of Fire, feature film like that. No, not today. Can't get that done. Revolution, the one he did with Pacino.
Al Pacino,
back that, which wasn't a big hit in the first place, but nevertheless, it'd be tough to get a movie like that. All these guys made movies of a sort that would be really hard to get made as feature films today, which is sort of interesting.
Sad.
Yeah, it is.
Burt Bacharach. I feel like the guy scored my youth. It's like I think of all these great songs, like all the, it's Burt Bacharach nonstop. There was Barbra Streisand and Burt Bacharach, and it's so much Burt Bacharach from the 1970s.
Yeah, you can't. What are you going to do with the Burt Bacharach and like that Raindrops from Buster Cassidy and the Sundance Kid?
Gee whiz,
which is just sort of such a completely out of place song for a quote unquote cowboy movie at the time, but it was just so perfect, and Arthur and and that's the thing. The 60s, the 70s, the 80s. The 90s,
I know,
the 2000s, a little bit of Burt across all of that.
It goes, for me, it stretches from What Do You Get When You Fall in Love, Dionne Warwick, all the way through to Grace in My Heart, the amazing film where he wrote all those wonderful songs with Elvis Costello. And Allison Anders just directed the hell out of that movie, and it got no love.
It's beautiful.
Such a great movie, great songs. So. Yeah.
Well,
Burt Bacharach. Raquel Welch finally died, which I didn't think was possible. It defies physics. But
these things at some point just start to make no sense. So Raquel, if you're as old as me and Wade, and certainly if you watch these things and reruns the way we did when we were kids, you saw Raquel Welch in episodes of McHale's Navy. Yeah, you saw Raquel Welch in episodes of Bewitched. Raquel Welch was the only thing that could possibly be finer than Elizabeth Montgomery in an episode of Bewitched. I'm watching Bewitched, because I'm obsessed with Elizabeth Montgomery, and I'm like, oh, who's that? It is Raquel Welch. It had to be. Who else could it have possibly been? And then of course, sexy, all of that. Yes, but Raquel Welch, hysterically funny. So funny, Raquel Welch, particularly in her later years, but she always was.
Never took herself serious.
Never took herself serious. Didn't take that sex symbol thing seriously. She wasn't dumb about it. She knew she was fine, but she never took it seriously. One of my favorite Raquel Welch movies, 100 Rifles with Jim Brown, right? Jim Brown. Yep. And Burton, I love that movie. And that was kind of a big deal, because, one of those early black and white movie kisses there in cinema. That one. But you give me Raquel Welch in that episode of Seinfeld back in 97 when she wouldn't move her arms. It's just too funny.
Here's the thing that's devastating to me is that, realizing that Raquel Welch, who was always just ageless, passed away in whatever she was, 82, 83, something like that. And you just thought, gosh, I never thought she would age. And then I got to thinking, wait a minute. But Tawny Welch, who was just this beautiful, beautiful clone of her mom in Cocoon. How old is Tawny? Tawny's 61.
Tawny's my age, yeah, literally. And in Cocoon, I was like, "Ooh, who's that hot young thing?" I'm like,
the years fly by,
like zip, zip, zip.
It's unreal. The older you get, Stella Stevens passed. That's another one. Another great, beautiful actress and sex symbol of yesteryear. Kind of taken the youth out of the equation. Walter Mirisch, I think he was 102.
Yeah, you have to say the great,
amazing. I mean, and here's the thing here, Walter Mirisch, right to his dying day was, and by the way, Walter Mirisch was still getting credits. He got a credit on Steven Spielberg's West Side Story.
Yep.
So, because he was a producer of the first one. So contractual, right? Can you imagine you're 101 years old and you're like, I got that clause in that contract. Came through for me in the later days.
And if you're smart as Walter Mirisch, you knew back in 1950 to put that clause back on. I mean, what are we talking? We're talking about some like a hot producer,
the Pink Panther movies. Yeah. And the thing about the Mirisch company, the Mirisch brothers, of whom Walter was the last one, was that they were the first independent producers in Hollywood. Literally the first. They were
Marvin, Harold. Was it Harold? I think it's Harold.
I think Harold too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were the ones that went to the studios and said, why don't we do like this? Instead of you carrying all the water, we'll just make a deal. We'll make the movie and you make a deal with us. Nobody had ever done that before.
Yep.
I mean, and the closest was Selznick, and Selznick was his own studio. Selznick International Pictures was a studio. He didn't go to another studio. The Mirishes, they just said, it's like airline leasing. Why go through all that trouble? We'll take care of it. And their track record just turned out to be amazing. I mean, they were phenomenal. It was the birth of American independent producing.
Yeah, and the Mirisch, Walter in particular, gave us some really Sidney Poitier. No Walter Mirisch, no Sidney Poitier.
That's right. In the heat of the night.
In the heat of the night, and having the guts, the balls at the time to do that, to just do that. That's the kind of stuff that he and his brothers gave us in the
They shifted the landscape and they made it possible for Billy Wilder in particular to make movies that nobody else was going to let him make. And for that, I mean. The book on the Mirisch contribution to Hollywood has yet to be written, but it will be. It will be. And then lastly, Tim, I mean, premature death, Tom Sizemore, brain aneurysm. That one kind of hits a lot of us hard. I mean, Tom is like our generation.
Well, Tom, literally my age. Tom, 61 years old, and Tom just came roaring onto the scene. I was theater, did some of that Chicago theater with those guys onto the scene, and he really was amazing. And it's kind of weird when we look back now at all of those great Tom Sizemore movies. He never led a movie, starred in a movie, but he created characters that defined a lot of movies. And Devil in a Blue Dress, playing that crooked cop in that white suit across from Denzel Washington. Tom Sizemore just created this character. Yeah. And Saving Private Ryan. He held the screen with Tom Hanks there, and everybody else in that movie. He was Tom Hanks's henchman in that movie. If you want to play him that way, because nobody else wanted to save Private Ryan. Nobody wanted to do it except Tom Hanks. But it was Tom Sizemore's character who said, "You heard the captain." And he had that kind of gravitas on the screen, and all that nutty stuff, Heidi Fleisch, this, that, and the other thing. Whatever. Your life goes that way when you have addictions sometimes, and he had a tough one. A good friend of mine, young filmmaker. 20-something years old, has made a couple of movies and put Tom in both of them. He may have in the can right now a young man named Trevor. Tom Sizemore's last film. He's editing it, and Tom has a fairly large role in it. So, been bumping up against Tom for a long time, and I'm glad I had a chance to work with him in that capacity at least.
Yeah, in Black Hawk Down, it's just he was one of those iconic actors who, even though he had a persona, even though he had that face and that voice and that attitude, somehow, he wound up in really wide diversity of movies, and he could somehow always make every character his own. And that's a gifted character actor who can do that. And I know he had a really tempestuous life, and Heidi Fleiss and all that stuff. He was he was connected to a lot of crazy stuff, but it's really a sad loss. A very talented actor, and he will be missed. Well, let's get down to the goods. We're going to talk about the Criterion stuff right out of the gate, and especially Hollywood Shuffle, because we had a great chance to talk to Robert Townsend.
Yes,
and that's going to be separate on the DigiGods site. We're going to put the video up there concurrent with this podcast. And you will see our wonderful, wonderful conversation with Robert Townsend, who just could not be nicer. And damn him, could not be more ageless.
Oh man!
Here we are doing a Zoom interview and looking at the guy, and I'm just thinking, what is your damn secret? He had not aged a day in 35 years. I don't understand how this works. Like, hasn't put on a pound, doesn't have a gray hair, doesn't have a wrinkle. I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's just nuts. Just exactly the same. And again, he's our age. He's our age, but he's there. And he's just great and so magnanimous and funny.
Oh,
he's doing
funny
characters and voices for us. I pointed out that if you're paying attention to Cooley High, Robert Townsend is in Cooley High. 1975 is Cooley High. He's a teenager in Cooley High. He doesn't have any dialogue, but he's wandering around that scene in the gym when all the kids are shooting basketballs, Glenn Turner and everybody. Robert Townsend is in that scene, and it's really, really, really funny. I love it.
And he pulled the whole Wayans family along with him, right? I mean, he wrote Hollywood Shuffle with Keenan.
Yep.
And he pulled Peter Deming along with him. Peter Deming, that was one of his first big breaks as a cinematographer, and he goes on to become, the David Lynch's go-to guy. So Hollywood Shuffle is just such a seminal film, and in the interview, I even brought it up with him. I said, "Have you seen Kevin Hart's new film for Amazon, Die Hard, where he kind of plays himself and he pokes fun at his own career and how he can't break out of comedy and become an action star?" I said, he's what you paved the way. He's basically doing his version of Hollywood Shuffle. So all this stuff is so much a part of a zeitgeist that he just tapped into, and it's such a great story how this movie was made. You got to watch our interview with it. It's just, anyway, Hollywood Shuffle gets the Criterion Collection treatment, and it is just beautiful. There's a terrific commentary on it by Townsend, and new interviews with everybody from Rusty Cundiff to Bobby McGee and Anne-Marie Johnson. Radio program with where he's interviewed by Elvis Mitchell. It's a wonderful, wonderful honor to get a Hollywood Shuffle on the Criterion Collection, and it couldn't happen to a cooler, more awesome, nicer guy.
Yep. Wait, yeah, definitely listen to and watch the interview.
Yeah. And then we also got Mia Hansen Loves Bergman Island on Criterion. That's from just a couple of years ago. So that's also a really wonderful honor for Mia Hansen Love. This is where this is her seventh film. I can't believe she's made 7 films at this point. Anyway, she went to the home of Ingmar Bergman to tell this really, really interesting, intimate family drama in this place where all of Bergman's genius happened, where all the inspiration happened, and so there is this kind of a spiritual connection that happens there, and it's a really, really interesting, very unusual movie. Comes with a new interview with Hansen Love, an interview with Vicky Krieps, a short film by cast member Gabby Klinger. And it's good. It's really good.
It's Mia has a film out now called One Fine Morning.
Film.
That she's the director. I wrote a piece for AV Club over there if you want to go check it out. It's a very lovely film. Her films are all very sort of personal and to one extent or another family oriented. This is Bergman Island is a real filmmaker's film. I mean, if you're a filmmaker or in any capacity, you're definitely going to want to see that.
So another movie here that I had never heard of came out a couple of years ago. I never even heard of the filmmaker. So this, I always enjoy when these things happen. This is by a filmmaker by the name of Lemoang Jeremiah Moses, and the movie is called Resurrection. This is not a burial; it's a resurrection. Yeah. This is not a burial; it's a resurrection. Did you see this when it came around by chance?
I remember when it came around, but I didn't see it. I didn't get a chance to see it. Did you?
Yeah. So the language is Sesotho, and it's it's one of these. I mean, I always enjoy movies that sort of drop me into a completely different cultural background, so that I feel like I've just been transported to another time or another place. And this takes place in Lesotho, and Lesotho is a really interesting country. For those who don't know, Lesotho is basically this little. It's its own country, but it sits inside South Africa. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people it almost looks like it's a nature preserve. If you look at it on the map, you just see this little dot inside South Africa, but it's fairly substantially sized, but it's not South Africa. Nope. And so I went and researched the history. I'm like, how do you become a tiny country inside South Africa, surrounded by South Africa? Like it's like Portugal. How did Portugal get stuck on the edge of Spain? Those kinds of questions. So it's a really interesting history. I'm not going to get into it here, but this movie made me want to go research that. And this is just an absolutely beautiful, sometimes almost magical, realist study of culture and family drama and the reverence for ancestors in this fascinating nation and culture, which is very different from South Africa. I mean, it really does have a tribal history, independent and separate from. So I'm grateful for this. I've discovered a filmmaker that I had never heard of before, and who is making his mark in the world. And so this is a director-approved edition, has wonderful audio, beautiful transfer. Moses does a commentary along with producer Kate Panzagru, and you even get a bunch of short films, so you can kind of catch up on Moses's career. And it's we got a world-class filmmaker here who's going to be doing a lot of great work in the future. So it's a really cool film. It is once again called "This Is Not a Burial; It's a Resurrection." Long title, beautiful movie. Dude, man, I have such a love-hate relationship with Lars von Trier.
Oh, yeah, that trilogy, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, so Criterion has released Lars von Trier's Europe trilogy, which, to be honest, until they announced this as a trilogy, no part of me actually considered that The Element of Crime, Epidemic, and Europa were a trilogy.
I never thought of them as a trilogy.
Element of Crime is a movie I liked at the time. I've had to reevaluate it in the wake of von Trier being a lunatic.
1984,
Epidemic, yeah. Epidemic, I don't much care for. It's okay.
1987, yeah.
And Europa, which was released here as Zentropa, so as to not confuse it with Europa, which was at least the same year.
1991, yeah.
Yeah. They're now calling it Europa. It's its correct original title. So just know that is Zentropa. Was this high-style thing with the freaking angles and the black and white and just this intense look. And I remember just thinking, I don't really know what this is about. I don't get it.
and what's funny is these aren't Lars' more problematic films. Those are easy Lars films.
These are easy. That's true. There's you don't have, nobody's putting a drill through Willem Dafoe's knee. There are no rape scenes. There's no, oh gosh. It's funny. I always think of Nicole Kidman's story when she was shooting.
The one in the warehouse with Somethingville, whatever it is.
Yeah. And when Russell Crowe was shooting nearby, and he just came to drop in and pay her a visit, and he walks into the soundstage where there is literally nothing. There's just Nicole Kidman and other actors in costume, and then chalk and tape on the floor and walls of an empty soundstage. And Russell Crowe, in his inimitable Crowe way, walks in the door and takes a look around, takes a beat, looks at the walls, looks at the floor, looks at Nicole and goes, "What the hell is this?"
Dogville. It's Dogville. Right?
Dogville. Yeah. So these are all real movies compared to that stuff.
Yeah. So, there you go. That's funny how that worked out.
And I mean, look, there are audio commentaries with Von Trier and other people, obviously, but on all of these. And I can't, for the life of me, I can't listen to him talk anymore. I can put up with like 10 minutes of the commentary, and then I just think, you go just see a shrink. You are so messed up, bro. You are so, jeez.
And what's funny is Lars is not even like, frankly, with all after all of that 40 years of that, Lars is not terribly relevant anymore.
He's not.
No. Frankly, a lot of those Dogma guys aren't relevant anymore.
And he still won't leave Denmark. He's afraid. Yeah, it's weird.
Probably I smart to stay in Denmark.
Yeah. Well, anyway, look, I don't know. There's some other interviews on here, and there's a couple of student films that he made in 1980 and 82 that just watch them, make up your own mind. But look, I mean, why is this a trilogy? I guess I kind of understand it. I mean, the whole box set makes the point as to why this is a Europe trilogy. I understand it, but it's a very, very tenuous thematic and career trajectory that connects these movies. So I'll go with it. I'm glad to have them in case I need to pull them out for any kind of an academic reason, like if I'm ever going to teach a class or have to argue with somebody. But man, wow. Yeah. Okay, there it is. Tim, Romeo and Juliet. Let's talk for a second about Olivia Hussey and her lawsuit with this. Both of them, actually.
Yeah. From years and years ago.
1968.
How she was like 16, he was like 17, something like that. Yeah. They were both, relatively speaking, underage, and a couple little nude scenes in there that they say now they were pressured into doing and did not want to do, and feel like they were basically abused as children. Of course, who directed that? What's his name?
Zeffirelli
directed.
Yep. Olivia Hussey and Leonard Whiting, stars, who are both still around.
I don't know. That's a long time, man, to have had these issues and not said anything. And I guess the things today are what they are today, so maybe that's why they feel empowered to talk about it. A lawsuit, though, I don't know. It was saying how you felt then. That makes total sense to me. Hindsight is 20/20, and I'm kind of okay with that. But a lawsuit, not quite sure that makes any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing the film as part of it. They showed it here at the local Lemley as part of a Shakespeare series, and I was in elementary school. And I remember they kind of dragged us to go and expose us to Shakespeare, and that's fine. We saw Taming of the Shrew and a few other Shakespeare movies. I think Olivia's Hamlet was part of the series. I don't think the school officials did their research into Romeo and Juliet and realized that these first or second graders were going to be seeing some nudity. But I remember at the time I was grateful for it.
Yeah, I just thought it was all wonderfully, wonderfully sophisticated. I didn't see this movie until I was a teenager. But I just thought it was all wonderfully sophisticated. I didn't think it was. But that all of these things again, it's that hindsight thing, and it's this new lens. But that's the reason why I have to wonder whether it makes sense for there to be a lawsuit about it. Thoughtful consideration of the time, the period, and the pressures, that's all fine with me. But I'm not sure that we should be suing people 50 years later.
Well, there's a lot on this, relatively speaking, considering that at the time they didn't really have a lot of behind the scenes stuff to go from. There is an excerpt from the 2018 documentary Franco Zeffirelli Directing from Life. I wish they had the entire documentary because it should be here, but the excerpt is fine. There are Olivia Hussey and Leonard Whiting interviews that were conducted pre-lawsuit between 67 and 2016, and that's really, really terrific. And then a lovely essay by Ramona Ray, who really kind of hits the sweet spot on the film. So, relatively speaking, some really good extras there, and nothing addressing the lawsuit, however, which we'll have to play out, and we'll see where that goes.
Zeffirelli's been dead for years, not that long, but 2019, 2020, something like that.
Yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago, I think.
Yeah, that's
something like that. Yeah. So, two films here that are really, really worth paying attention to from Marguerite Duras, the great French, not just filmmaker, but author and, just an extraordinary individual, just one of the major literary and artistic figures in the history of France. And Marguerite Duras has written books that were turned into movies. She's made her own movies. Anyway, these are a couple of films that she made in 1975 and 1977 called India Song and Baxter, Vera Baxter. Both of them shot, square frame, kind of Academy aspect ratio. India Song is it's 1:37. It's like really square. And you know what? I think if you want to appreciate Marguerite Duras, you almost have to combine what she wrote with what she made in terms of films. And I think seeing these and then reading her literature will give you a perfect snapshot of who she was. I mean, it's tough to really explain these movies, but it's worth checking out. You get an amazing snapshot of somebody who just had this. And I hate to use the word postmodernism because it's tarnished significantly by the philosophical approach, but the aesthetic of postmodernism in French cinema is one that she certainly embraced, and you can see it in these films. So highly recommended there. And then we've got on 4K, Dazed and Confused, which is nice. Finally getting this from I don't know that it was beautifully shot enough in the first place in 1993 to warrant a 4K, but what Richard Linklater kind of came storming on after Slacker, and he gave us Matthew McConaughey in this movie, and he gave us Parker Posey, and a lot of people made their debuts in this film, so it is kind of a seminal movie. Does it hold up for you?
No. Just to put it real quick and fast, but a lot of that early '90s wandering around, Slacker, Gen Xer, chit chat movies. These people just wandering around talking and philosophizing. And watching it from the perch of frankly, a 60-year-old, I want to smack all these kids. You're right. Gave us like Cole Hauser's walking around this movie. You got Anthony Rapp walking, Adam Goldberg walking around this movie. All of them walking around this movie, but back then, watching this movie, thinking that this was really bright, and it's Richard, whole and complete director, every word written by him. Ben, and now, every kid in this movie I'd slap. Shut up, just shut up. All the crap coming out of your face is retarded. But that said, it's fun to watch. Just to do that, just as Richard Linklater at 20, whatever he would have been in 19, whatever. He's younger than me. Yeah. So he would have been, I don't know, 20 something. Yeah. Philosophizing through all of this kind of stuff, and so, but it is an interesting time capsule, though. It's an interesting time capsule of 30 years ago.
I will say, and it takes place in 1976, and I'm just going to say, for movies that take place in 1976, my preferred film is The Spirit of 76, which of course is a hilarious time travel disco comedy.
Those Super Trooper guys, the true Super Trooper guys.
No,
right?
It was directed by Rob Reiner's little brother, and Sofia Coppola did the costumes. And it was produced by Martin Landau and Barbara Bain's daughter, Susie Landau. So it was like basically all these Hollywood second generation, brats that got together and said, let's make a movie about, and then,
I remember this. Mark's Mother's Bar.
It's got Leif Garrett is in it. Olivia Dabo, David Cassidy. It's basically about a bunch of people. Like Carl Reiner has a cameo at the beginning. You know the premise of it. It's in the future. A magnetic cloud passes over the earth and degosses all of history. and so they need to get into a time capsule and go back to 1776 to rediscover the Constitution. But the time capsule, the time travel machine malfunctions and lands them in 1976. So it's all disco era, and it's just freaking hilarious.
I remember that movie, about 1990 or so. That, man, I totally forgot about that. That's a good one.
It used to be a midnight movie at the Newark. I used to go to see that thing like at least three times a year. It was just hysterical. Anyway, here we're talking about a movie that's not even being released this week. So the best thing from Criterion this week by far is the 4K release of Kieslowski's Three Colors Trilogy, which I just think is one of the all-time. This is the greatest trilogy ever made. Blue, white, and red, based on the colors of the French flag. Blue, with maybe the greatest performance Juliette Binoche has ever given on screen. Blue won the Berlin Film Festival. Yeah, Blue won the Berlin Film Festival. White won Venice, and red was 1994 at Cannes. Everybody thought he's going to get the Triple Crown. It's going to win the Cannes Film Festival. Everyone loved it. It was phenomenal. And then Clint freaking Eastwood goes up there and goes, and the Palme d'Or goes to Pulp Fiction, and people lost their minds. Yeah, and they lost their minds. So Quentin Tarantino, much as we love Quentin, kind of feel like that year he stole Kieslowski's Triple Crown possibility. But anyway, all I'll say about this, and there are extras galore in here. The 4K is just thunderously good, a magnificent transfer.
I just can't believe these have not been a part of the Criterion.
They have been, but not on 4K.
But not on 4K, just a 4K. Yeah, okay.
It's the 4K. I was actually one of the last people to interview Kieslowski before.
Oh, yeah, I remember you.
That was an interview that our good friend Ziggy set up here in LA, and it was just a miraculous hour that I sat there with him, because the guy, I've never met someone so revered in cinema who was so absolutely unimpressed with himself. Mm. That's the thing about Kieslowski, is you could sit down and you treat him like he's a god of cinema, and he will look at you like, get a life. Just get a life. I'm a failed author. If I had any motivation, if I had any skills, I'd be writing novels and not making movies. So don't put me on a pedestal. That was basically his attitude.
Extraordinary.
Yeah. And I just love that. And these films are just astonishing. They changed my life. And so go check them out on 4K. It's worth upgrading.
Absolutely.
Let's hit some Arrow stuff here real quickly. The House That Screamed. Tim, do you have any recollection of The House That Screamed?
The House That Screamed. Give me a little refresher real quick.
Okay, The House That Screamed is one of these just absolutely. Well, I don't want to be overly cruel about it.
That's an Italian film. Is that what it's from? That
it's Spanish. It's
Spanish. Okay.
Directed by Narciso Ibáñez Serrador, and it's like Spanish schlock cinema from that moment when Jess Franco was inspiring far too many people to make knockoffs of his already bad movies. I'll just say this about it. It's
take your time.
The lingering residue of my
Lily Palmer is in that movie.
I know. It's like it's a knockoff Jess Franco movie, and I know it has a following, and I know there's kind of like a feminist element to it in some people's eyes, but anyway, this thing is loaded with extras. It uses branching to give us the American cut. And I was like, oh, that's right. You can do branching. Like, that was the big promise of DVD and Blu-ray in the early days, 20 years ago. And I think one movie ever used it. This is like the second one. This is the second time that they've used branching to actually deliver a different cut instead of just an entire separate transfer dropped on here. No. You can switch between the 105-minute cut called The Finishing School and the 94-minute American theatrical cut called The House That Screamed. You can use branching to do that, and that's pretty great. That. So, yes, thank you for finally putting that technology to use after 20 years. And a lot of interviews and, other tidbits here. But ultimately, I look at it and I'm like, it's a Jess Franco movie that Jess Franco didn't make. Mm-hmm. We've also got a Quentin Dupieux movie called Incredible But True. This is the guy that made Rubber, that movie about a tire. I think he's out of his mind. But anyway, this is another Quentin Dupieux movie. They're all kind of weird and quirky, and they don't make sense to me. This one, is called Incredible But True. It's got a decent cast.
Yeah,
I like Alan Chabat and Leah Drucker are fine, but it's just weird.
That's what he does.
It's just weird. It's sort of a haunted house movie, but not really. like people move into a house and there's a tunnel in the bay. Anyway, it's just him just doing what he does and being weird and odd. And when you have good actors, I guess they sell it somehow. Lukas Moodysson. Yeah, we got the full collection here. Container, Lilia Forever, Together, A Hole in My Heart, Blanking Amal, Mammoth, We Are the Best. I'm not a Moodysson fan.
No.
But he is definitely an auteur. He definitely has kind of a weird, cynical sense of optimism about the world. It's almost an absurdist humanism is maybe a better way to put it. It's absurdist humanism, and either you like his stuff or you don't. Lilia Forever may be the one that I think is the most accessible for me. But look, all of these things on here, it's a great box set. Arrow has pulled out all the stops. They understand that he is a relevant filmmaker, and this is the first time that anybody has ever actually put his entire body of work together, and it comes with a big old booklet telling you why you should care. Let's see, last four here. I'm going to hold on to the martial arts titles for the end because I'm particularly fond of those. .com for Murder by Nico Mastorakis. Did you see this by chance?
I did not see that one.
So I only saw a little bit of it. It's a Nastasha Kinski movie. I kind of feel like it's trying to do. So Nastasha Kinski's, she had a skiing accident. She's in a wheelchair, and this sets up kind of a digital era thriller that wants to be a little Hitchcockian. Kind of has one foot in Rear Window a little bit, maybe another foot in some De Palma films. I don't know. I'm not that familiar with Mastorakis, but
interesting cast. You got a little bit of oddly, you have Huey Lewis
and Roger Daltrey,
Nicolette Sheraton, who was like one of the just a thing. This is early 2000s. This film, and of course Natasha Kinski, who was another thing. So ridiculously beautiful people, and Roger Daltrey in that 25 seconds between Tommy and 2002 when he tried to be an actor.
I feel like if this movie were made today, it would be much less Hitchcockian and a lot more cynical. It's at the time it was made. It's sort of like The Net. Remember when Sandra Bullock made The Net? How much does that movie resemble anything? Like we're even more paranoid about the internet now. You watch that movie and you go, "Oh, they didn't know the half of it. They didn't know the half of it." So I kind of feel like this is. It's more old school thriller than it is internet, and it as a result it kind of feels a little bit dated. But it's a good cast, and it's probably an artifact of a kind. The Vagrant, I don't get this at all, but it has a following. This is a cult film made in the 90s by Chris Wallace, who is the guy that originally designed the actual. What was the name of the gremlin in Gremlins?
That little
guy. The actual, he did that actual Zig Big or whatever that little nut thing's name was. He designed that, so he's a creature effects guy, and so Chris Wallace, directed this, and it's kind of a throwback black comedy / exploitation. Homage of sorts. Bill Paxton's in it. Michael Ironside. It definitely belongs to that moment. But I mean, it's about a vagrant. It's just and it's nasty and kind of gross and disgusting and a little bit exploitative and almost more of an overlong student film that's a little bit experimental. And given today's current homeless crisis, it really kind of feels significantly like whatever side of that issue you're on, you're probably going to be offended by this on some level. But anyway, it has a cult following. So there's that. And then on the martial arts end, man, a couple of great things here. So Angela Mao, the amazing Angela Mao in a double feature of Lady Whirlwind and Hapkido. Oh my gosh, this is just so awesome. It's just so cool. Angela Mao was a kind of a major Shaw Brothers figure. And she came from, she was Taiwanese, came out of a lot of opera, like Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung did. That's basically her background. Anyway, and these movies are they are just so amazing. Absolutely amazing. Sammo Hung shows up in here. Carter Wong shows up in here. Hapkido is especially cool because Hapkido, is a Korean martial art basically pioneered by Bong Soo-han, who didn't make any Hong Kong movies. He didn't make Shaw Brothers movies. I mean, he made like one movie with Ed Parker here in the U.S., which is not very well made. So to see Hapkido introduced into a kind of a kung fu genre is really something special. And that's just a great movie. It really is. Hapkido is a terrific movie. And Lady Whirlwind, fantastic. There's a wonderful couple of commentaries on here. And then a third commentary with Sam Dean. But the first one with Frank DeJong and Bobby Samuels is really awesome. And then the second with Frank DeJong and Michael Worth is equally as good. Sam Dean is more of a kind of the artistic commentary, but the two that really get into the meat of the movie is the first two with Frank DeJong. And there's a new interview with Angela Mao too here, so it's all really awesome.
Both of those movies from 1972. Angela was just so ridiculously beautiful. I'm looking at some pictures. Just you heard those eyes, or it's just
the best. Yeah. And then if you still want some more Sammo Hung, then you can watch Millionaire's Express.
Yep.
Millionaire's Express is one of my all-time favorite Sammo Hung movies. It really is just absolutely terrific. So much great action, such a fun story. It's maybe the best of the kung fu in the Wild West scenarios. And there've been a number of those. There's a little bit of friction between Jackie Chan and Sammo over Once Upon a Time in China and the West, which starred Jet Li, and Shanghai Noon, which was Jackie Chan's story, and over whether Jackie ripped off Sammo or Sammo ripped off Jackie. They resolved that because they're brothers, but I don't think any of those movies are as good as Millionaire's Express. I think Millionaire's Express is just absolutely a load of fun, tons of great action, incredibly well made. Got to check it out. That also from Arrow. Sammo Hung just killing it here, and such a great cast. A lot of other great people: Richard Norton, Cynthia Rothrock, Yuen Bu, Dick Wei. It's fantastic. Rosamund Kwan, the amazing Rosamund Kwan, absolutely fantastic. Best thing that Richard Norton has done in Hong Kong cinema outside of Jackie Chan's City Hunter. Which was kind of a wild, crazy thing. But anyway.
Every Saturday afternoon, that great, fun cop show that Sammo had here in the United States when they be with Sam and Arsenio and Martial Law, Kelly Hugh.
Yeah.
That was one. It's got to be like middle late 90s or something like that. Whenever that was on here. But it was a fun show, and that really kind of introduced Sammo to the greater public.
And I always like to tell people, you've seen Sammo before. You saw Sammo long before that. They're like, no. I'm like, yeah. In the very opening part of Enter the Dragon, where Sammo's the fat guy who's getting beat up in the class. Sammo's in that movie for like 40 seconds. He's just getting the crap kicked out of him, but it's fine. 4K or TV? What do you want to jump to?
Let's knock out some 4K if you're.
Yeah, let's talk about the John Wick stash box, this Steelbook stash box of chapters 1 through 3. So this is this nice, beautiful collector's box set with just everything to do with John Wick and more. I mean, it's 4K. It's freaking digital copy on it. I mean, it's got the booklet. It's got the whole 9 yards. You know what this does not have, however, this 4K John Wick chapters 1 through 3?
What's it missing?
The fourth movie that comes out in a few weeks.
Oh, yeah. What are you going to do?
So I have a hard time recommending this because honestly, in 3 months, there's going to be a new box set that includes the fourth film.
And that's kind of irritating. Look, if you had told me that I loved that first John Wick film thoroughly. Second
you had to sell me on that. You had to get me. I did not want to go to those movies, and you pushed me to it.
Keanu, and but diminishing returns by me as they get a little bit more, people. But hey, it's a franchise, and people love it.
I think it is hilarious. And I finally, you're on your advice, and I finally had to catch up because I had to review the third one on the radio, and I was like, oh, crap. So, all right, Tim says watch them. So I watched the first one, I watched the second one, the third one, all back to back to back. Which is kind of cool because they all take place basically on the same day.
Yeah.
Like each one picks up the second the previous one ended, which makes it hilarious that this guy just cannot catch a break. Everybody is just shooting at him nonstop. It's just an unrelenting kind of scenario, and it all starts because of a dog.
He shouldn't have messed with his puppy. They shouldn't have messed with his puppy. It's that simple.
So anyway, I mean, I'm kind of on board the whole John Wick thing now. I admit it. I'm on board.
That's Keanu. You know how I feel about Keanu. So there we go.
Devotion, the other Top Gun.
Oh, yeah. Another really good performance from Jonathan Majors there. That kid is just, and look, the movies are fine. The Ant-Man movie. He's who's he playing? Kang.
And
that man, and he's doing Shakespeare while everybody else is in an Ant-Man movie. this kid is swinging, and of course Creed. He's really eating up the scenery in that one too.
And here he is in Devotion, opposite Glenn Powell, who was opposite Tom Cruise in Top Gun. So Glenn Powell just can't get away from airplanes. I'm kind of surprised that he did this, but I'm glad he did this because he's really good in it. So basically, Jonathan Majors stars as in the true story of Jesse Brown, who was the first black aviator in the history of the Navy and a really significant figure in the Korean War. And this is quite a story. It's amazing to me that it's taken it this long to reach the screen, but it's really, really beautifully done. I think it's a solid story. It's an old-fashioned Hollywood melodrama. It's a true story. And Majors and Powell know exactly what they're doing. Like Glenn Powell in particular, he doesn't get stuck playing the smarmy guy, the attitude guy like in Top Gun. Like he really gets to have those scenes with Jonathan Majors where they're bonding and they're talking about life and existential stuff and death and the flying scenes are terrific.
Good early aircraft carrier stuff, tailhook stuff, and which is very different than the stuff that's going on in Top Gun.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's just a classic story, drama, well made. I thought it might get a little bit of award season love, not a whole lot, but it was a tough award season.
Yeah, it's a tough award season, and oddly enough, they didn't really put anything into this thing. They didn't put any juice behind it, and I blame Paramount. They could have put a little bit of heat behind this, but they didn't. And that's really unfortunate. Awards campaigns are an art. Speaking of, Remains of the Day gets a 4K treatment. I am thrilled about this. I can add this to the Movies Anywhere collection. This is a perfect movie for me. This is my favorite Merchant Ivory film by far. You and I have talked about this. The book scene in this movie is just one of the most perfect pieces of cinema ever. It is, Anthony Hopkins, the look on his face, holding that book as Emma Thompson peels it out of his fingers is I want to cry just talking about it. It's just so poetic.
It's absolutely exquisite. That scene in particular is just such a just such a moving and beautifully written screenplay. Ishiguro, he has a he wrote Bill Nye film. Living. Right. Adapted. Well, what's nominated? Bill Nye's nominated, but
Bill Nye's nominated. Yeah, and Ishiguro's nominated as well.
He's nominated for adapted screenplay, right?
And this is the thing that I think is so beautiful about Remains of the Day, is that it is considered such the perfect atypical story about what it means to be British. And of course, it's the story of servants in the home of a wealthy lord. just on the eve of World War II. Christopher Reeve shows up as an American politician in this thing. And a lot of people don't realize a lot of the British aristocracy supported Hitler and the Nazis before the war broke out. They thought that they had a wonderful vision of society and utopia that they were aspiring to, and that they really need to have support. And that whole milieu of British aristocracy obviously came crashing down when the war started. And this is about the upstairs, downstairs politics of that, based on a novel by Kazuo Ishiguro. But it is so British, and yet it's based on a novel by an Englishman of Japanese extraction, produced by an Indian, directed by an American, and screenwritten by a German, Rutger Jabvala, who obviously had been married to an Indian. So these are all people who are coming from outside British culture, with experience from outside the UK, and they're kind of inhabiting it from the inside with this amazing British cast, and they've created the perfect portrait of what it means to be English in the pre-war period, and all the contradictions that entails, especially for those who are working in service. So, I mean, it's an unbelievable movie. It's just absolutely freaking flawless. James Ivory has never made a better movie. My wife would kill me for saying that because Howard's is her favorite. But Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson coming on the heels of Howard's End, and just killing it. Just absolutely killing it. It's a beautiful film. Great extras on here. You get the James Ivory, Ismail Merchant, and Emma Thompson commentary previously released. All the other stuff's previously released, but you're getting this for the 4K, and it's magnificent.
Yeah.
Tim, what else on here? Mentioned
Where are we going?
Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
Well, it's funny because we talked about that at the show.
Yeah, we did.
This along with Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio and all the other movies. So here another Puss in Boots movie, and Charles had a great comment about the returning to the Shrekiverse, as it were, which gave us Puss in Boots. There's so much Puss in Boots. I mean, beyond just the feature films. Yeah. This one. In this one, Puss realizes that he's used all but one of his 9 lives, and he's a little bit, worried about how to live his life out a little bit more safely, since he's only got 1 life left, and so that's what's going on in the film. It's about the same as all of them. They're fun if you like them, and enjoyable, but they might scare your child.
I got some exploitation stuff I'm going to kick out here real quickly. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is out in 4K. Believe it or not. One of them is regular, one of them is a Steelbook. Look, honestly, I don't know why you need this movie in a Steelbook. I don't know why you need this movie in 4K. I don't know why you need this movie in anything other than a scratchy, dirty 16 millimeter dub in your basement. It kind of works better that way.
The only place it should be watched. Yeah.
Like invite some friends over, go down in a dark, dank basement and crank up the 16 millimeter projector, and it'll be scarier than in any other form. But that said, look, they make a good attempt at kind of giving it the 4K treatment. I don't think this really warrants it. It was shot. I think it was shot in 16. But, okay, fine, 4K for the obsessives. The Steelbook and the other one, they all have the same stuff on them. There's a bonus disc, it's a Blu-ray bonus disc, and then the feature film with some commentaries on the 4 commentaries in all on the main UK 4K disc. None of them really kind of blow my mind. They're all previously recorded. Tobe Hooper, that one is probably the most interesting. But it's the Texas freaking Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed in all these years. It's got one scary moment when Leatherhead slams the door, and the rest of the movie is just horrible. Yeah. Speaking of Jess Franco earlier, a couple of Jess Franco movies on 4K for some reason.
Oh, those Marquis de Sade.
Yeah, the Marquis de Sade things. Justine and what they are now calling Philosophy in the Boudoir, previously known as Eugenie. I don't know why they changed the title on that one. These are both from Blue Underground. Look, these are maybe Jess Franco's most serious films, and that's not saying much because it's Marquis de Sade. But he went and he made these 2 films based on material of Marquis de Sade, and they're predictably erotic and dated and risque, and they have his unique sensibilities all over them. So tons of extras here, audio commentary from film historians and a lot of other fun stuff. But if you're not a Jess Franco fan, they're going to be meaningless. Decent transfers, though. Jess Franco movies are never great looking, but the colors are kind of garish and something. Training Day, Tim, we got interviewed about this.
Yeah. Denzel Washington's Training Day from back in the day, which was a very interesting film. Antoine Fuqua, who's got Emancipation out right now, running around. It's funny because I watch Emancipation. I kept thinking to myself, this is Training Day. Only, what the guy said during the slavery was the same movie. Training, and look, kind of. Ethan Hawke had a career as a child before this, obviously, right?
Yeah.
All of those kid movies, but this was the movie that sort of made him a grown up actor. Training Day opposite Denzel Washington, having to do it. What's on that sucker? Do we get anything good?
What it doesn't have is the featurette that we were interviewed for.
Oh, really?
No, it doesn't have that. That was for the other.
The one from on
the more recent one. Yeah. We're on that one. They don't. Things, I wish they had put it on this one, but nonetheless. Anyway, no. There's a commentary from Antoine Fuqua, which is really good. I mean, Fuqua is a very, very. Here's the one thing I like about his commentaries, and they're all kind of like this, which is that he is much better at self-analysis. He's much more self-aware as a filmmaker than a lot of them are. Like, I love John Boorman's commentaries, but John Boorman cannot sort of look at himself from the outside to save his soul. So you get these very kind of existential, personal, memoirs. Whereas Fuqua can look at this and in a very detailed way, he can say, when we shot that scene, I wish I had done this, or I'm glad I did this. And he kind of frames the moment for you in a way that a lot of commentaries don't. So he's a useful guy because he's very much a technician and he's very self-aware, and his approach is very technical. So I appreciate his audio commentaries. There are also some additional scenes, an alternate ending that doesn't work, and a couple of featurettes and music videos. That's about it. But it's a beautiful 4K transfer. And if Denzel doesn't just fill the screen with that performance. Yeah. Larger than life.
Yeah. Well, got that Oscar for very good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I got a couple of Steelbooks as well that have been released from Sony in tandem with each other. They're kind of trying to tie these two films together. I'm not quite sure why, but anyway, it's a twofer. The Mask of Zorro with Antonio Banderas, and Anthony Hopkins, and then Harrison Ford in Air Force One. I guess they're both hero movies in which bad guys are being fought. That's the closest I can draw parallel I can draw between these two. Mask of Zorro is a fun film. I still like it. I still think it works. I think Catherine Zeta-Jones is great. Anthony Hopkins somehow makes me believe that he's Mexican. I don't know how. It's kind of a miracle. But this is Zorro for our generation, and I appreciated that. I appreciated that it kind of found a way to update this very dated character. Air Force One. Man, you know what? Gary Oldman doing that Russian accent is just beyond embarrassing. I can't. Mother Russia. It's like it's
as opposed to Wolfgang Petersen's ear. It probably sounds okay, but a lot of this, dude. So what are we talking here? It's 97. The Mask of Zorro is 98.
Yeah,
a lot. Martin Campbell, sort of a classic. So a lot of this stuff is tough today. A lot of this stuff today. Master of Zorro really kind of gave us that young Catherine Zeta-Jones. She was, kind of fresh for Master of Zorro. And that
right from British TV.
Yeah.
Just right from British TV. I mean, Wolfgang Petersen is phoning this in totally. He's basically giving us, here's what this is. This is basically giving us In the Line of Fire crossed with Das Boot on a plane. That's what he's doing. Seriously. I mean, he directed In Line of Fire, he directed Das Boot, and he thought, oh, well, why don't I just actually, not just a Secret Service agent, but I'll literally have the president, and he'll be on the submarine, except we'll make it a plane.
It's funny. There's a lot of folks walking around that movie at the time. Just in the movie. William H. Macy is walking around that movie. Dean Stockwell is. There's all kinds of people walking around that movie that you don't. Glenn Close, Wendy Crewson walk around that you just weren't thinking about at the time, but there they are in that movie.
And when I look at this, I'm always reminded of what Mark Kaiser used to always say about his mom, which is he goes, my mom only likes one kind of movie. where Harrison Ford saves the world. That's it.
Well, now he's saving the old West.
Yes.
Apparently.
Oh boy. So let's talk for a second about David Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future, with Viggo Mortensen and Kristen Stewart and Léa Seydoux. This movie, I mean, for a Cronenberg movie, which normally they become major award season contenders.
Yeah.
This went nowhere.
No, yeah. Look, I wonder if that Cronenbergian sort of style of creepiness, and this is a creepy ass movie, as all his films are. I don't know, Christian. I don't know. Maybe that just doesn't play the way it used to with contemporary audiences. Our generation who go back to all those Existence and all those creepy Cronenberg movies. Maybe the kids today are just not into it. He's got a kid out there making creepy movies too, so maybe they're
the premise here is also one that I think might freak people out a little bit. It's like a near future thing where people are basically it's sort of about performance art and human mutation, and it's body modification and a lot of subjects that I think are just generally off-putting to people because they're hitting a little too close to the bone in some respects. Let's see here. Cloverfield. We got a Cloverfield anniversary release, 15th anniversary. Can't believe it's been that long on 4K. Great commentary by Matt. It's interesting to look at in hindsight. This was the film that resurrected his directing career. He hadn't done a feature film since The Pallbearer, which I got some fun stories about. But he came out of doing a lot of TV for a lot of years. JJ and Brian threw him a bone with this, and it got his career back on track. Next thing you know, it's Planet of the Apes and now The Batman. So Cloverfield kind of started it all. It was also the first of the found footage movies. How do you think it holds up?
Not bad, and it actually feeds into the sequels fairly nicely.
Yeah, it does.
It's a nice foundation for those sequels that came along. It's another one that gave us a lot of young folks who went on to do some really interesting. Lizzie Kaplan, and T.J. Miller and Theo Rossi and a lot of folks who've gone on to have some interesting sort of careers. So interestingly, it is even though it's the most. It's you don't really know what the hell is going on in Cloverfield.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the game. That's
the game, and it's just subtle rubber. And so because of that, they've been trying to tie what's going on in Cloverfield into a whole bunch of other franchises. And I find that kind of irritating. But that's the game, right?
I got an interesting faith-based film here on 4K, Running the Bases. With Brett Varvel. This is basically about a coach, a baseball coach, and high school baseball coach who has conflicts with the superintendent over matters of faith. It's very formulaic. Like most of these films are, it's basically the same trajectory. The thing that I'm curious about is why they're releasing it on 4K. Because I don't know, like 4K, most of the stuff we talk about, it's hitting three spots. It's either new movies that are just technically so on the edge that 4K accelerates it, or it's classic movies that have a certain nostalgia, or it's cult movies, Jess Franco movies and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where you're a collector and you're particularly enamored of that filmmaker. I don't know what the 4K audience is for a faith-based movie. Most of these things get released on DVD, a few on Blu-ray, because they're penetrating the audience that typically goes to Walmart or that doesn't get their product on a streaming platform. So if there is no faith-based streaming platform, you're going to pick up what you see at Walmart or on Amazon or at Best Buy on DVD.
Right.
I don't know that there's an audience of 4K adopters large enough to justify this. So I find it a curious release, but it's interesting. I don't know.
Indeed.
I don't know where else to go with that. And then some comic stuff. Let me just hit the comic-y stuff real fast. Legion of Superheroes, DC Universe animated movie. Perfectly fine. Love a lot of these characters. Supergirl and John Johns and Brainiac, and it's the usual array. The DC Universe stuff is going to start changing very soon because I think they're going to bring that under the umbrella of everything else. We've also got on 4K Return of Swamp Thing with Heather Locklear and Louis Jourdan absolutely love this. I can't stand the Swamp Thing movies, but I love this for only 2 reasons. You know the 2 reasons?
Heather
and Locklear. That's it.
That's it. That's right. The old Swamp Things with
Adrienne Barbeau.
Yeah, with Adrienne, that was another reason. But there you go. Yeah.
And then we got a 4K collector's edition of Bubba Ho-Tep, Don Coscarelli film with Bruce Campbell and Ossie Davis.
Yeah.
What an absolutely lunatic movie this is.
That was so much fun. Bruce Campbell as Elvis, not dead. Fighting against a mummy.
Oh my
it was really great.
It's really, I mean, this is one of those cult movies that just says, I'm a cult movie.
Yep.
And if you have a problem with that, then there are other movies you can go see. I am not going to try to be more legit. Like, that's my problem with Cocaine Bear. Cocaine Bear is Sharknado, but it wants to pretend that it's not. No. You're Sharknado.
No, there's a reason for the. No, there's not. There's no reason. There's no reason.
Don't be legit. And that's the beauty of Bubba Ho-Tep. Bubba Ho-Tep just says, we don't care.
Yeah,
we don't care. We're just going to go there. Let's see, just a few others here. I'm going to end on the Oscar-y one. Station 11 is on 4K.
Yeah, I watched that. Yeah. I didn't read the graphic novel, but I did engage the
interesting movie for Paramount put it on 4K. Interesting movie to put. I mean, it's a very psychological, very intellectual, post-apocalyptic story. Tim, your thoughts on Station 11?
I like the way I like the way it moves around in time, because it moves around in time in such a way that we're in the future, and then we're back to when things first started to happen, and you get to piece together who these characters are. When we meet Mackenzie Davis as a little girl, and I got to tell you, Hamish Patel is just becoming one of my favorite actors. He's just this wonderful actor who at the beginning of this whatever it is that wipes out most of humanity, he runs into this little girl by happenstance, and they have this connection that lasts over the course of this series, which lasts over the course of many years, more than 20 years, and we just sort of move back and forth in time. But by the time you get to the end, it all sort of makes sense. You sort of start to understand what happened and where we are now. And I found it kind of wonderfully satisfying. Generally speaking, I don't care for all of these post-apocalypse. There are a bunch of them now. The Last of Us is on out there. Yeah. There are a lot of them, and they're all pretty bleak, and they're all pretty can't win situations. The Last of Us isn't finished yet, but I did read that graphic novel series, and we don't fare well in that. So it'll be interesting to see how they changed them a little bit from the original graphic novel. This was a pretty good one. I liked it a lot. Mackenzie Davis was particularly good.
The Magnificent Seven is on 4K as part of the Shout Select line. It's hard to kind of criticize the Magnificent Seven. This is just an epic film, even though it's adapted from the Seven Samurai. It's a beautiful adaptation. Akira Kurosawa adapted a lot of non-Japanese stuff, Shakespeare and Ed McBain and Westerns, and kind of brought all of that to Japan. And in exchange, a lot of people have been adapting Akira Kurosawa into a lot of their films, Living being the latest example. Mm-hmm. So there's this wonderful intercourse that takes place between Akira Kurosawa and Japanese culture on the one hand, and Western culture, European and American on the other hand. It's been a wonderful kind of dialogue between his cinema and other cinemas and other literatures. And The Magnificent Seven is one of those. Mm-hmm. And I always like to kind of give Kurosawa props for this, because you really do feel him as a presence here if you know to look for it. And you know what? I mean, it's a great movie. What an amazing cast. Yul Brynner, Eli Wallach, Steve McQueen. I don't know how you go wrong. And they really did a number on the 4K. They really did wonderful work. John Sturges' direction here, as it is in, The Great Escape and all of his other great movies, is just beyond compare. Wonderful, wonderful widescreen filmmaking and tons of extras and, great commentary here featuring people who are now long gone. One of them being Walter Mirisch. Yeah. Walter Mirisch, James Coburn, and Eli Wallach. So, in the wake of Mirisch's passing, this is a fun commentary to listen to. Great movie. How's your feeling about, the old Magnificent Seven.
Oh, it stands up solid. We were talking about Antoine Fuqua a minute ago. He did a remake with Denzel and everybody a couple of years ago, which was kind of nutty. One of these sort of nutty things where there was really no reason for all of these people to be together.
Well, I remember I went and saw it, and I came back, and I was trying to sum it up in my head. I said it's like it's all these. Well, it's kind of like, and I was mumbling, and you cut me off, and you said, is it forced diversity?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is. You got this Chinese guy, for example, for absolutely no reason, with all of his Chinese weaponry. It's like, I mean, I can buy these guys all being together in 2022, but Wild West, this kind of rainbow coalition of heroes is not coming together.
Well, it's weird because look, you're just making this up, and I know it's a movie, and we're supposed to make things up, but you got to make up stuff that I can actually buy, and so that was just like this unnecessary sort of thing that they did in that movie that Kurosawa knew not to do when he was.
Yeah.
And Ron was another one that was taken. That's Lear, right? If I'm not, I think that's So a really interesting dialogue. Great that you pointed that out.
Our last 4K is the Fabelmans.
Yeah.
Tim, I put this entirely in your lap.
Well, here's the thing, because look, I've softened on this, and obviously we talked about it at the Oscar pre-show before. In This Town Loves Steven Spielberg, and there's a pretty good chance this film and he might win Academy Awards. For me, the problem is in the title, The Fabelmans. It's a fable. And for a film that ostensibly is supposed to reflect something of a biographical story,
Mm-hmm.
and which is what I really would have loved that. This is just a collection of stories that Steven Spielberg has been walking around this town telling for 50 years about his childhood and things to do with going to see The Great Escape and what little bit we've come to know about the dynamic between his mom and dad. And he just takes it and he squishes it into this big gloss covered, what they used to do back in the day, put Vaseline on the lens, something like that. This entire movie is Vaseline on the lens.
Yeah.
The whole thing. And I'm just, look, man, if that's what you want to do, knock yourself out. But you had an opportunity to tell us all something true and piercing about yourself and where you came from. But instead you told us a fable. And that's unfortunate as far as I'm concerned. Is it an enjoyable movie? Fine. But if you want to know something about Steven Spielberg, I say watch Close Encounters, watch E.T., watch Catch Me If You Can, watch a whole number of Steven Spielberg films that'll tell you a great deal more about Steven Spielberg than The Fabelmans will.
I have a friend who's in the film, and so I love aspects of it. I certainly think there are some the actors are all terrific. They really are. But yeah, watching this and then of course Armageddon Time, and you've drawn that analogy many, many times. You did on stage the other day on Sunday as well. James Gray is draws his circle. It's a little bit more than here's a story about me. It's here's a story about this time and place, and I just happen to be there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there is something to be said for that, and it'll be interesting to see how all this shakes out long term. Anyway, TV. Shall we jump into TV real quickly here? I'm just going to jump onto a few things here. Furry Friends Forever, Elmo and Tango. This is just animated Sesame Street stuff with Elmo skews super young. My daughter is now way too old for this, and she was a big Elmo fan at one point. Couldn't get that Elmo doll away from her. Animated Elmo and live action Elmo and all things Elmo. This has 3 Elmo episodes. New friends, new songs, new adventures. I don't know. It's 2 hours of Elmo. I can't handle that. The Man Who Fell to Earth, season 1.
Yeah.
The new Man Who Fell to Earth. Have you watched it?
Yeah. Watched that whole. Our guy Chewy there, named
Chewy led you for,
and produced by Jenny Lumet and Alex Kurtzman. And it's just an interesting sort of take on that whole story as a series. I like the way they break it up. It's very. it's sort of existential sci-fi. It's what it is. It's science fiction. Our guy falls to Earth, and we watch him develop and become the person that he's going to be. Not unlike in that David Bowie movie. Yeah. As he's interacting with Naomi Harris and her father, and she's a scientist, and he needs her to help him do this very complicated thing. As he basically learns what it is to be human. What it is to be human, which is what this story has always really been about. Yeah. What is it to be human? An alien, bit by bit, interaction by interaction, conversation by conversation, coming to understand what it means to be human. It worked pretty good. The technology is kind of interesting. It's pretty easy to follow. And I liked it. I thought it came together pretty well.
I agree. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes. We also have the complete Showtime series City on a Hill with Kevin Bacon and Aldous Hodge, which takes place in the early 90s in Boston. It's a little bit of like The Wire. There's a touch of The Wire that runs through this. I actually think this is as kind of this overarching look at law enforcement and the justice system and the problems of, modern urban America. I think, especially at that kind of pivotal moment in the 90s.
Yeah, in the 90s, yeah.
I thought this was pretty gritty and pretty tough, and I think it compares well with something like The Wire, especially because it's a much tighter, sort of focused narrative, but I don't know. Your thoughts?
No, I agree completely, and it felt so true to the moment. That early 90s, there were issues at that period on the East Coast and in Boston in the 90s, and I thought this felt so true, and it looked so true. The production values are just sharp. It would be really easy to blow those production values because they're so close to the present day, but they don't. Every car, every outfit, those shoulder pads, it was just really, really great.
Yeah. The complete series of Longmire. We got a lot of these shows that I think it's interesting. You watch something like Longmire, or even what's the other one?
The Yellowstones.
The ones that precede Yellowstone. What was the other one in Kentucky? Oh gosh, they're all these modern westerns. There've been a number of them. Yeah. And Longmire is one of them, and they all kind of paved the way for Yellowstone. So I think in that regard, it's interesting. I didn't watch a lot of Longmire when it was on the air. I didn't even realize they were based on these mystery novels by Craig Johnson. So, now that I know that, I'm like, all right, well, I can see that. Lou Diamond Phillips is terrific. And,
Lou Diamond is the thing that's really great in that series.
Yeah. Really, really great. So, I mean, it's catching up on this. I'm like, all right, well, I now I see where Yellowstone came from. Justified. That's the other show.
Justified, the one with Timothy Oliphant. Yeah.
Yeah. So Longmire and Justified kind of paved the way for Yellowstone, I think. They created an audience of people who are like, well, I think I want to see more people in 10-gallon hats driving cars.
And it's probably why Walker, Texas Ranger got a reboot.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Great call. Great call. So Longmire is an interesting rediscovery there, and this is the complete season on the complete series, I should say, the complete series on Blu-ray from Warner Brothers, and in the wake of Yellowstone, a nice rediscovery. Tim, do we really need a 7th season of Fear the Walking Dead?
Oh man. I just, they're really pressing that just as deeply as they can. Now, to be honest with you, I was only good for the original Walking Dead, and the spinoffs I haven't been paying that much attention to. So I don't know what's going on. I take it that these are all taking place at the same time, but in different places. If I'm not mistaken,
it's the Walking Dead verse.
The Walking Dead verse, very good, sir. You might have to, might have to copyright that. Is this the one that takes place in Southern California?
Dude, I guess.
I think that's the one that takes place in Southern
California. You know what? I mean, it's all post-apocalyptic. I can't. I don't. I watch. Here's how I go through this. I'll take it. I'll be like, I don't know. I'm not gonna watch the first episode of the season. I'm not gonna watch the last one. I'm not gonna watch the whole season. So I kind of play eeny, meeny, miny, mo. What episode am I gonna watch that will not require me to have a lot of backstory and will not bait me with some kind of a horrible cliffhanger that'll make me want to see something else? So I'll pick like an episode of random and I'll watch it, and I'm like, I don't know when or where this takes place, and it's I get what it's doing, but I'm not watching enough of it to become that invested, and then that's deliberate. So it just strikes me it's just been done to death, and when you're on your 7th season of this series, it doesn't feel like it's doing anything different. And you watch the next episode and you're like, it's doing the same thing.
Yeah, as you said, the zombie verse, and it kind of all works the same.
Yeah. All right. We also have the new Dynasty. Its final season. They threw in the towel. They cried uncle.
How many did they get? Though? I mean, reworking that Dynasty thing.
Oh gosh, was it 5, 6, 7? I can't remember. I can't remember. This is the final one though, and it's the end of it. And thank goodness, it just, it needed to go away. It doesn't have what the original had,
No.
And it was the same thing when they rebooted Dallas. It's missing the lightning in a bottle quality that they captured when they took a very, very specific cast of unbelievably popular people and brought them together.
Yeah.
And just packing a whole lot of like today's current beautiful people into a movie who don't bring something else with them. It just feels like treading water. It feels like I've gone to TJ Maxx and then oh, look at those clothes that are hanging on the rack. I saw celebrities wearing those on the red carpet, but they don't look the same.
No.
That's what it is.
They're knockoffs because they're all cheap knockoffs. Look, you can only create JR, for instance, from Dallas.
Yeah.
Larry Hagman once. The character that you call JR Jr. or JR the 15th or 3rd or whatever, he's not JR. And it's the same thing with these Dallas. Joan Collins, can only walk onto the set of Dynasty once. Linda Evans can only walk onto the set of Dynasty once. Everybody else is just going to be pretending to be them. Whatever. But like you said, they got 5 seasons? They got 5 seasons. So
maybe more. I lost track. I totally lost track. And I didn't do, I didn't want to do the homework before the show. I was lazy. I'll admit it. Really interesting drama series here, The Split, in its 3rd season on BBC, with some really fine actors that I'm just not that familiar with. Nicola Walker, Annabelle Sholey, Fiona Button, wonderful British names, Deborah Findlay, Stephen Mangan. I mean, I feel like I should be saying these names with an accent. But this is a show that deals with the divorce, the legal ins and outs, the personal ins and outs of divorce in London. And I didn't see series 1 or 2, so I'm coming at this a little bit cold. But as a drama, as a well written and well acted drama, it certainly seems to have something going for it.
Yeah,
and the whole. I mean, divorce is an ugly subject no matter what, and especially to turn one into a TV series. I don't know how many people are going to want to watch that on a regular basis. But somehow the British accents make it feel all so much like a detective show.
Well, British divorces get just as ugly as American divorces, and this is like it's a family of things. All these women, these divorce lawyers, and their dad comes back. I did watch a little bit of the first season of that, and it was very, very sharp. Not unlike any of our wonderful shows like that, going all the way back to the old LA Law.
So completely on the opposite end of The Man Who Fell to Earth is Resident Alien, which is now in season 2, which is about an alien who has to somehow pretend to be an actual human, and not only a human, but a physician. The trick is that this physician has a mission, and the mission is to kill every single human being on the planet. This is a very, very odd comedy. I'm not quite. It's comedy where I feel like I should be laughing more than I do. But I feel like it, but somehow deep inside I'm laughing harder than I actually am laughing verbally. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Have you seen any of this?
Oh yeah, sure. He's here. He's got to wipe off the planet because they got to do that alien thing. We're going to take, but he likes us. But he has to kill us all. So it's really
so hysterically odd. Elle Fanning and Nicholas Hoult in 2 seasons, both on Blu-ray now, of The Great. Yeah, the story of Catherine the Great. Catherine the Great, big someone my mother was particularly a fan of, not because she was a great person particularly. Catherine the Great kind of paved the way for Putin. She was the one that, paved the way for a lot of anti-Semitism and pogroms and seized a lot of territory and really kind of geopolitically engineered most of the problems that we are dealing with Russia today. Catherine the Great did a lot of that.
Yeah.
But here's why my mother was a fan. They were born in the same village.
I love it.
Okay. So, my mother was always like, Catherine the Great and I come from the same village. I'm like, you know what? That's fabulous. And that's terrific and good for you. But, you might not want to spread that around too much.
Well, here it's played in a, sort of Me Too-y kind of feminist dynamic with Catherine having to deal with that with Nicholas's nutty guy. Nicholas walks around naked in the show. So it's just absolutely hysterical. It's funny. But it's, it does not represent the reality in any shape whatsoever. It's walking a different sort of path. But I get what they're doing. I'm a big nutty fan of Elle Fanning. I think she's just wonderful.
She's terrific. She is. She's the Fanning that really elevated, isn't it?
Yeah, really good.
Sister kind of stalled there for a second. Jon Bernthal, season 1, American Gigolo.
I just don't get. I look at that guy's face and I'm thinking to myself, we're comparing that face to young Richard Gere's face,
right?
I'm like, seriously? And maybe it's a dynamic thing. Maybe the suggestion is here that, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years on, what is considered masculine and handsome and saleable as a gigolo is a rugged sort of blah, 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 whatever it is. Maybe that's what they're saying there. But all I know is Richard Gere in that original movie, I bought every second of it. I saw exactly why women would throw money at him. Of course you would. Of course you would.
Let me tell you about Jon Bernthal. I don't think there's going to be a second season of this series because Jon Bernthal just got rehired to do an old character. As of today, breaking news, Jon Bernthal is coming back to the new Daredevil series as the Punisher.
As the Punisher. I thought that would happen. That is breaking news. I did not know that. Yeah.
Yep. The poster just released today, and it's a picture of Daredevil in a new suit, by the way. He's in the new suit and Punisher next to him, and they're both they got that comic look on their faces like we're going to kill every living thing in front of us. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. Season 1 of Joe Pickett, as long as we're talking back about these modern westerny things. Joe Pickett is something kind of went off of. I didn't catch this at all, and it takes place in Wyoming, and it is definitely one of these modern western things that we're just talking about. Also based on a book series by C.J. Box, and it's okay. It's very. It's still very much in that kind of Longmire Justified pocket. It's a little bit there. So we'll see where it goes. It's a little more old school, rusticy. It's a little more hard. It's a little more, rooted in the Western thing. But David Alan Grier.
Yeah, I was going to say David Alan Grier shows up in this thing with that big old white beard. As I sit here with my big old white beard, which I kind of dug. I thought was interesting. He's a game warden. Yeah, this guy, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there.
I like so much of what he's doing at this stage in his career.
Oh,
I really do.
Yeah, David.
He's not looking to be a sidekick. He's not even looking oftentimes to be a funny man. He's just looking to just do some interesting work. Yep. And he kind of is sort of liberated him. The complete first season of Pretty Little Liars Original Sin. This is a new HBO Max spinoff from the whole Pretty Little Liars thing. I don't know if we need more Pretty Little Liars, Tim.
This is just look. This inclination to just make another buck by spinning it off or stretching it out. I wish that inclination wasn't there. Yeah. Just you have the power. Just do a new thing. Yeah. Do a new thing. Thing. I just wish that would be, but it's not like there aren't times when I haven't loved that. Yeah. I can think of a few series where the spinoffs I've liked actually more than the original. I'm a ridiculous nut of the entire Stargate universe, all that kind of stuff. And I got to tell you, some of those spinoffs are better than the original Star. There was a movie and then all that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, I wish they'd just do a new thing.
Yeah, I agree. And then we have lastly on the TV front, and then we'll wrap out with some new movies that are not 4K. The Adventures of Batman, 2 discs, animated show. You know, the original animated Adventures of Batman is perfectly fine. It dates reasonably well, I guess, but you know, the film. I mean, Mark used to always rip on me for all how much I love the old Filmation animated shows. You know, and they made 34 episodes of this thing, and I actually think they're solid.
Well, I love that Bert and Adam is their voices.
It's Casey Kasem as Robin.
Oh, really?
Casey Kasem does Robin here.
That's not Bert and Adam?
No, it's Casey Kasem as Robin. But what's funny is that Casey Kasem first did Robin. This is why a little bit of trivia. Casey Kasem, who of course did Shaggy on Scooby-Doo. Mm-hmm. Well, there was one of those Scooby-Doo episodes where they meet the Harlem Globetrotters and they meet the Three Stooges and right. We started it was ridiculous. We started throwing guest stars in that make no sense whatsoever. And in one of them, Scooby-Doo and the gang, they meet Batman and Robin. And for some reason, my adult self looked back and said, "Son of a bitch! Now I know why it bothered me that Shaggy and Robin sounded exactly alike."
Casey didn't do a new voice.
No. It bothered me, but I didn't know what bothered me at the time. And then I found out that Casey Kasem did them both. So anyway, when they did this standalone thing, it was Casey Kasem doing Robin.
I had no idea.
Absolutely, yeah. So anyway, but yeah, this is perfectly fine. It probably feels closer to the comic Batman than just about anything else that's ever been done. So I give Filmation props for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the newer movies that did and did not get love from the Oscars. Let's start with Whitney Houston. I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Wow, just kind of came and went and really, really fast. Look, I'll let you in on a secret. I appreciate that young actress. She's wonderful, and she was actually quite. I saw it. She was actually quite good. Very, very effective. But I got to tell you, in the Black community, the casting of that young British actress as our beloved Whitney Houston from the Hood, that was problematic, man. I can't look. Maybe this is a crazy way for people to think, but I can't tell you. I did not talk to everyone's engaged about that movie. That's the first thing that came out of their mouth. Is that chick's not from around here. Yeah. People take these things very personally, man. They really, really do. There was a bit of an issue, frankly, with Cynthia Erivo playing Aretha Franklin in that television.
I was going to bring that up too. Because Jennifer Hudson did not face that blowback, and Jennifer Hudson, I thought, did a much better job.
Yeah, in the feature film. Yeah, mm-hmm.
There has been this conversation in this moment about British actors taking over a lot of iconic American roles, black and white, right? Mm-hmm. David Oyelowo playing Martin Luther King. For a moment, every single iconic American superhero was British. Spider-Man was British, and Superman was British, and Batman was British. Lincoln was British.
Yeah.
Right. So this, God love him. We love Chewie. We love Man Who Fell to Earth. But 12 Years a Slave, Chewie was British, right? I know what you're saying. There was this moment where everybody kind of felt like, you know what, could some American actors take over here? And it's not that the performances weren't great, but
they were great.
There is something when you are rooted in the culture that you are portraying that you bring an extra layer of depth to it.
And depth and understanding. And even if it's just about the audience, the audience is sitting there with this idea in their head. And the idea is the idea, and you can't get it out. So I don't know. There it is. But nevertheless, she was quite good in that movie. It's a well-made movie, but it's bumping up against a cultural dynamic that I think some filmmakers might want to start paying attention to.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, here's another one that got no love from the Oscars. She Said, and I thought this was going to be one like a major Oscar contender for a minute. Man, did I get that one wrong. Blu-ray DVD combo set, Movies Anywhere code. Basically, it's All the President's Men, except it's about the New York Times journalists, the two women who blew open the Harvey Weinstein scandal. And I think this is better than All the President's Men. I think this is better than What was it? The one about the
The Insider, maybe. No, which one?
The priest abuse scandal.
Spotlight.
Spotlight. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think this is a better depiction of investigative journalism than either of those movies. Granted, the scandal that it's depicting is very inside Hollywood. It doesn't travel as well with general audiences as something that is about,
the tobacco scandal or something like that. Yeah.
The Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Or Nixon. So we're dealing with Harvey Weinstein, and how many people really want to pay attention to Harvey Weinstein right now, who's still in the news and still going to prison? So Carey Mulligan and Zoe Kazan, though, are phenomenal. I think it's an unbelievable screenplay. I think it's incredibly well directed. I just think it's a monumental effort. It just didn't get any love, and that's kind of sad to me. Makes me sad for Annapurna as well, who produced it. But Andre Braugher is phenomenal in this. Samantha Morton is unreal. Samantha Morton has one scene. It's almost even just one monologue, and she steals the whole movie. She's phenomenal. And Ashley Judd plays herself. And there's something to be said for that. So, I still think She Said is an unbelievable movie. I still recommend it, but man, it got no Oscar love.
Yeah. That was one of the ones that did not rise.
The Inspection. Interesting movie. The Inspection has gotten some independent love.
Yeah.
Get some Oscar love. But I think this is a film really worth paying attention to. This is Elegance Bratton is the very talented young man, first-time filmmaker, wrote and directed based on his own experience, which is a story of a guy who was who's a drug addict and homeless and gay and had to somehow lie about all of that to turn his life around, had this really horrible passive-aggressive relationship, kind of codependent and passive-aggressive relationship with his mom, and he wants to turn his life around by joining the Marines. But you can't say, I was gay, or I am gay, and I've been homeless, and I'm a drug addict. You can't say those three things and get into the Marines.
Nope.
So you got to lie. And a large part of this movie is basically still the first part of Full Metal Jacket. It's boot camp stuff, boot camp sadism, fighting with the. But it goes into some really interesting directions. It's very revealing, and it's a really well made film. And I think Elegance Bratton has some real chops. I think he's going to be a really interesting filmmaker coming on.
Gabrielle Union, very strong in this movie. She got a lot of love on the independent scene for really strong. And Bokeem Woodbine, Bokeem playing that drill sergeant. Very straight up. Who was our guy in Full Metal Jacket? Arlie Ermey. Straight up Arlie Ermey in that thing. Very strong. Yeah.
Another film that didn't get any love, Bones and All.
Yeah,
I hate this movie.
It didn't deserve any love. Look, I love our girl in that movie, but that movie was just foul and disgusting.
Taylor Russell is amazing and wonderful. Timothée Chalamet, I can give it. Mark Rylance in this movie is disgusting. He is disgusting. He is so off-putting. Everything about his character just made my stomach turn.
And this is Luca Guadagnino.
Yeah,
intentionally so, but so effective at it that it was extremely effective at it. And I don't recommend it. Don't watch it. It's disgusting. No. It's a people-eating movie. Just so you know, it's about cannibalism.
Yeah, it's about young lovers who bond over the fact that they have this like whatever genetic mutation or whatever it is, but they are compelled to eat people. And how do you eat people without killing people? Because they know that killing is wrong. So you hang out with other people who kill people, and then you just eat the people that they kill.
Yeah.
I mean, it winds up being just foul and disgusting, and it's just a nasty movie. It really is. And Taylor Russell's wonderful, and she almost saves it, but man, what a nasty movie. Yeah. The Old Way. This is interesting. Nick Cage is just making these cheapy knockoffs, and this is another one. But I will say, there are elements to this. This is like if you did a low budget remake of Unforgiven with Nick Cage in it. This is basically that movie, starring the girl who was from the remake of Firestarter, the reboot of Firestarter, playing his daughter. Nick Searcy, who I know, is tremendous. Nick Searcy owns this movie. Like Nick Searcy is acting in a different movie from everyone else. Nick is acting in a real movie, and he's kind of daring everybody else to come up to his level. And you can tell everybody else is sitting there going, but Nick Cage is in the movie too. Shouldn't I be acting down to Nick? Why do I? No. But in fairness to Nick, he's pretty good. So I mean,
it's okay. It's as you said, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, with Nick Cage, with his status, the status of Nick Cage 25 years ago, this would have been it's like you said, Unforgiven. It's Unforgiven. And Nick Cersei is still in Unforgiven. He's like, let's just do it anyway. Let's just do it like it's Unforgiven. I didn't think it was bad at all. I rather enjoyed it.
It amazes me the people who show up in some of these movies. Like if I were to say to you, oh, dude, there's a new movie. It's got Robert De Niro and John Malkovich in it. Wouldn't you normally go, oh, that's going to be an Oscar contender? But somehow when you stick Jack Houston in it and you call it Savage Salvation with the tagline, payback is dirty. What? It's like now this is some cheesy B movie straight to video. What is this? What are you doing, Robert De Niro and John Malkovich? What are you doing? Oh gosh, it's just.
And I like Jack Houston too. You know, but how could this just not come together as a real movie at all? Even you'd figure with John and Robert in it, it would be a real movie just because you're walking around in it.
It's a vigilante revenge drug movie. That's all it is. And they make like 50 of those a year, and I don't know how they get the money to make them.
Well, it's set it has to do with the whole opioid thing. You know, somebody overdoses. You know, Robert puts on that he's a sheriff. What is he, a sheriff or something like that? They're these sheriffs. They're going to go out and they're going to do what they're going to do.
I am loving what David Harbour's doing with his career. His whole springing out of Stranger Things. You know, we have a Ghost on Netflix, which I think is where he's the ghost and he has no verb, no words, no dialogue, and the whole thing is terrific. And I gotta say, man, Violent Night is just a hoot. I didn't think I'd like this movie where he plays. It's basically Die Hard with Santa Claus. You know what? David Harbour just has so much fun with this part. He really does. It's the guys from John Wick said, hey, why don't we remake Die Hard? Well, that's boring. They've already made Die Hard. How do we make it different? I don't know. Make the Bruce Willis. Die Hard was a Christmas movie, right? Well, what if we're making Die Hard, except instead of Bruce Willis, it's literally Santa Claus. Oh, that's a great idea. That's how this movie happened. It's funny.
Yes.
Leguizamo's funny.
Yes.
It's good.
Yes. I predicted it will become a Christmas cult classic. It absolutely will.
It really will.
It absolutely
Too much fun. Another faith-based movie from Pure Flix. Nothing is Impossible. Same deal. Except this time, the same deal as the other one, except this is a basketball movie. It's the same deal. But it's not on 4K. It's on DVD. Like I said, this is the way you market and sell these movies to that audience. Anyway, life's not turning out as planned, and faith saves him, and it's that trajectory, which I find tedious because these movies are all the same. But you know what? They elevate themselves very often, and they do in this case by hiring real actors to fill out some of the parts. And in this case, it's not the lead actors, but they pull in Stephen Bauer and Harry Lennox, and that makes the difference. Stephen Bauer and Harry Lennox are real actors. They bring some gravitas, and it elevates the movie. So it's, nothing is impossible. It actually kind of
every scene they're in is just a little bit better.
It is.
It's an interesting thing. It tells you why you want good actors. They just make it all a little bit better.
For sure. What Remains? Interesting movie. What Remains? I missed this in theaters. I know it was in theaters. This was a Gravitas release. Interesting little low budget family intimate drama. Good performances. Kellen Lutz, Anne Heche,
Andrea Riseborough, which people are talking about.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe is this Anne Heche's last performance?
Oh, I wonder if it is.
I feel like it is. I mean, it's a little bit of a mystery. It's a little bit of a kind of a family drama. But I'm looking at this. Anne looks terrible in this, by the way. And that was the thing. I'm thinking, is this Anne Heche's last performance? I think it probably is. And that's kind of sad because I wish it were something a little more distinguished. Speaking of Bruce Willis, I don't know if this is his last performance, technically. Detective Night Redemption? Do you know? Do we have any others sitting on the shelf, or is this?
It's a good question. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah. We'll have to do a little research here real quick and see for Bruce. Well, everybody knows about Bruce's situation. It's gotten worse, which I suppose we knew that would happen, right?
Well, this is technically the second film of a trilogy. I don't know if that means that there's a third one that he's in.
Well, there's Detective Night Redemption, Detective Night Independence, which I guess would that be the second one? And then the Detective Night Rogue, which was the one from a couple of years ago. So is this the third? Is this the second or the third? There might be one more. And then there's another movie called Assassin.
Because this one is dated 2023. This is dated this year.
Redemption? They
say this is dated this year, so I don't know. Anyway, it's a detective film, and he plays James Knight. I presume then that because it is Detective Knight, he is the central character in all of them. So I assume there has to be another one after this.
Detective Knight Independence. There is one called Detective Knight Independence. I just can't figure out which order they come in.
Yeah,
but the first one is Detective Knight Rogue. That's for sure. I remember that when I saw that one.
This is about a bunch of guys. It's a little Die Hardy as well, ironically, and it's about guys who are using Christmas themed persona to terrorize a city. So it's the Christmas bomber is what the guy calls himself. Anyway. It's I gotta say, the thing that makes me so sad is that now that we know what Bruce is going through, you can see it in the acting, see it in the performances, and it's really, really. I'm glad he's getting the work, but it makes me sad.
Our Ray Green wrote a great review of one of his more recent and later films. I think it was the one called The Wrong Place, if I'm not mistaken, which was 2022, and Ray pointed out how some of that actually lent itself to the performance that Bruce was still able to engage in that particular film. But I'm with you. You can kind of see it. You can kind of see it, and I'm not sure I want to experience all that. One more called The Assassin in the can for Bruce.
And speaking of another Bruce Willis performance here, and this is why I'm trying to figure out the order of these things, because this one is dated last year, so this was clearly made earlier. This is Travolta and Bruce Willis. By the way, Travolta in Die Hard is just to die for. If you haven't seen it, watch Die Hard, the Kevin Hart thing on Amazon. It's Amazon, not
Amazon.
Okay. Amazon, because it really is. The whole idea is he goes to this action school. This action star school, ASS Action Star School, to be able to be an action star, so that the crazy director that does all these action films will put him in and make him an action star, and it's John Travolta is the guy who runs the Action Star School, and he's out of his mind. He's insane. All he does is torture poor Kevin Hart, and it's very funny. Travolta's really good in it.
Oh boy, it's
just so great. Anyway, Travolta and Bruce Willis for the once great Chuck Russell in Paradise City. And it's weird because looking at the other film, looking at the Night film versus this, you can tell that Bruce is a little sharper in this one. And here Bruce Willis plays a bounty hunter, and he's everyone thinks that it takes place in Hawaii, right? It's a beautiful Hawaiian backdrop. Anyway, but he's a bounty hunter, and everybody thinks that he's dead and that he's lost, and they can't find the body, and there's some twists and some interesting things that happen with Stephen Dorff, and Travolta plays the heavy really beautifully, and it's not bad actually. Chuck Russell has made better films, and he's a better director than this. I wish that they kind of give him some better stuff, but it ain't bad. It feels a little bit like what a studio would have done a better job with maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, well, Chuck Russell knocked out to The Mask,
a bunch of things.
The Scorpion, Eraser, Scorpion King, Eraser, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Didn't he also do? Was it Con Air? Was Con Air his?
Yeah, that's one of his too. Yeah.
How do you feel about the new Father of the Bride, the Cuban Father of the Bride with Andy Garcia and Gloria Estefan? I mean.
It plays. They've done this with a couple of them now. They had the Latinx One Day at a Time remake. This, of course, is Father of the Bride movies number one, and so they're the old movies, and then of course the Steve Martin movies. And this, it's okay. It's all the exact same beats. I don't know why it's necessary if it hits all the exact same beats,
which it does.
But there it is.
Like it plays, and you could do it 20 different ways, and you could do a different version for every different neighborhood and culture and state and country, and you could set it in 20 different decades, and it's still going to play. But I don't want to watch them all.
No, because it's literally the same movie. So I don't know.
The Loneliest Boy in the World is on Blu-ray from Welgo. Welgo does veer out of their martial arts and their Asian-centric stuff once in a while. And this is a really interesting kind of modern zombie fairy tale. It's a weird little genre movie, but it's got charm, and it's well made, and I think it's worth watching. I would have liked to see this get a little bit more play in theaters. I think this is the kind of thing that might have had a life in theaters if they were sufficiently open. So since they're not, might want to check it out. Yeah. From Welgo, The Loneliest Boy in the World, a sweet little kind of humanistic zombie drama comedy. Called Jane with Elizabeth Banks and Sigourney Weaver, abortion drama set in Chicago, 1968. Basically about about a woman who goes from being anti-abortion to being an abortion rights activist and helping women basically get abortions through this underground network run by Sigourney Weaver. True story, actually. Yeah.
That period right before Roe v. Wade. Yeah.
Leading up to and into Roe v. Wade, and it deals with the network, the Janes, which was, I think there was a documentary about them as well. So, I mean, I think it's, as a drama, it doesn't quite fire on all cylinders. It could and should be a little better. But, if you can separate yourself from the politics enough, I think there's some good performances to hang on to. Elizabeth Banks and Sigourney Weaver are both particularly good. Poppy, only on DVD. This is an actually really kind of a sweet little, I think it's an Australian film, about a young woman with Down syndrome and trying to take charge of her own life. And it's a coming of age film. It's got some, sweet humor in it. I do feel like it probably needs an extra something, but boy, this young actress, Libby Hunsdale, is just absolutely wonderful. She really is. She's got nuance. She knows exactly what she's doing, and it's really nice to see. It's so rare that we have actors with Down syndrome who have a chance to actually act and be themselves. And so I really do welcome.
Comes along every now and again. And frankly, I've never been disappointed. Not a single day. Who's the kid in that series back in the 80s? Corky.
Life Goes On, or whatever it was called. Yeah. Same thing. And then, of course, the amazing French kid who was in the Jaco van Dormael film, The Seventh Day. The Eighth Day. Yeah. Which, who was wonderful. And I interviewed him and Daniel Auteuil, and they were amazing. It was really, really wonderful. Last couple here real quick. Rock Dog 3, Battle the Beat. I don't know why we needed Rock Dog 2. But there it is, Rock Dog 3. They've made a third one, so I guess somebody's watching these things. You know what? What can I tell you? He's still playing the guitar and he's still Rock Dog. It is what it is. And then last one here, American Murderer, which is based in an actual story. So what I love about this is Tom Pelphrey. Because Tom Pelphrey, who is just not really broken out since that amazing season of Ozark, Tom Pelphrey is just equally spectacular here, alongside Ryan Felipe, Idina Menzel, the great Oscar-nominated Jackie Weaver, who I had such a great pleasure of giving an award to some years ago. So it's a really, really rock-solid cast in a film that kind of needs a little bit of help. So go out there and help it along. Yeah. Tom Pelphrey plays a con man, and he's being chased by the FBI agent played by Ryan Felipe, and it's a wonderful cat and mouse story, all really true. They embellish this very, very little, and the way that it escalates is very methodical. It's well written, the characters are well drawn, and the performances are just absolutely superb. So and good work from the director Matthew Gentile, who wrote and directed it. So it's an interesting thing. There's even a little short, which is their proof of concept, how they raised the money for it and everything. It's a nice little film. Nice little film on Blu-ray. American Murderer, Tom Pelphrey and Ryan Felipe, and Idina Menzel and Jackie Weaver as well. So with that, Tim, we'll close it this week. Yeah. I think we've somewhat caught up. We still got a little bit of a backlog here. We'll get to next time some Jet Li movies and some other stuff.
Some of the LGBTQ stuff.
Yes.
When we come back, will it be pre or post? It'll be post Oscar, I guess, right?
Yeah, Oscars are next week, so we'll be post Oscars. What do you think's going to win? Seriously,
I think you're right about the Fabelmans or All Quiet on the Western Front leading. In my heart, I am deeply hoping that for no reason whatsoever, other than it's a really great movie that I think that it's among my top 3 movies of the year. Top Gun, Maverick. I'm really hoping that a bunch of people are just going to vote their gut and say, Tommy, you got it.
You know, it's weird. Everyone's saying Everything Everywhere All at Once, which swept the Spirit Awards, it swept all the Guild Awards, and it didn't sweep the BAFTAs. All Quiet swept the BAFTAs. But Fabelmans also won the Audience Award in Toronto, and I just can't help it. And maybe it's a generational divide. I don't like Everything Everywhere All at Once. Love Michelle Yeoh. Watch the Michelle Yeoh Kicks Ass series right now on Criterion Channel. It's amazing. It's all of her. It's everything from Crouching Tiger to all of her 1980s stuff. Royal Warriors, Magnificent Warriors, the phenomenal Yes Madam, which has the greatest finale with Cynthia Rothrock. You can't imagine how awesome it is. Heroic Trio, Executioners, The Stunt Woman by Anne Hoy, which is not a great transfer. Magnificent Warriors is a beautiful transfer. But anyway, it's all on Criterion right now. Watch it. They're all great movies. I think they're all better movies than Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I just don't care for. But it's because it's too frenetic. It's like a giant TikTok to me. I can't imagine that with as many detractors as it has, that it's going to get enough 2s and 3s to be able to win on the preferential ballot. But I could be wrong. It just feels to me like Fabelmans has the green book vote.
Yeah, well, it's a phenomenon. It's a phenomenon. I got to tell you, that smacked me like nothing. But you nailed it. It is a very specific sort of dynamic, and it's a Hollywood thing. It has to do with that interesting mix of all the new people who are in that academy now.
Yeah, yeah.
That really sort of. But All Quiet. Not All Quiet. Have you moved on from that?
You know what? I mean, the thing about All Quiet is the people who voted for Parasite might vote for All Quiet, right? Because they don't have that. It's nominated for 9 awards, man. I mean, it's
including that international award, which is Quiet
international award. I mean, it is the only. It's definitely going to win Best International Film. There's no doubt about it. Only 7 films prior have been nominated for both Best Picture and Best International Film. Every one of them has won international. Every single one. And the last one also won Best Picture. That was Parasite. I think there was another one since Parasite. I think something else was nominated for both. But anyway,
maybe Minority. Was it Minority? I don't know.
I can't remember. But they're the interesting thing to me here is that only 2 foreign language films have ever received more than 9 nominations as Best Picture. One was Roma, one was Crouching Tiger. So there's a lot of love for Michelle Yeoh, and she may just carry Everything Everywhere by herself. There may be people who just hold their nose and go, I don't like the movie, but I love Michelle Yeoh, so I'm going to vote for it anyway. And that may do it. That may well do it. That may push it over. But I just also can't help but feel like there are people, there's an old school guard that says Steven Spielberg deserves one more. We're going to immortalize him with this. We're going to push him out of the 2-time winner crowd into the 3-time winner crowd. We're going to push him up there with John Ford and William Wyler, and we're going to really make him one of the all-time gods of the Oscars. And the film about his own life is the one to do that with. And the Daniels are going to be back again. They're going to make many more movies. I think there may be a feeling like, they'll be back again. But Spielberg, let's give it to him for legacy. I could be wrong.
Those things happen all the time in this time. So you're probably not wrong at all. It'll be interesting, and we'll talk about it when we
talk about it on the next show. All right, everybody. We'll see you then.